the Oh,
well
guy
done.
called the race with frickin' King 8. Well, this kid probably won't last another hour. It's just so sick. They'd have no concept of poker.
Phil Hellmuth's behavior at the table led directly to the introduction and enforcement of stricter conduct rules in live poker tournaments. Known for his record number of World Series of Poker (WSOP) bracelets and explosive personality, Hellmuth regularly berated opponents, slammed tables, and made exaggerated complaints during hands. His outbursts, often captured on television, became a staple of poker media, but also drew increasing criticism. Before stricter rules were introduced, emotional reactions and insults were often tolerated so long as they didn't delay the game. Hellmuth's repeated meltdowns, including calling opponents idiots and accusing them of not knowing how to play, pushed tournament directors to create enforceable guidelines for sportsmanship. This resulted in expanded use of penalty cards, timeouts, and disqualification warnings in WSOP and WPT events. The WSOP introduced the Code of Conduct policy in more explicit terms during the 2000s. Verbal abuse, excessive celebration, or consistent criticism of others' play could now lead to time penalties, chip penalties, or removal. The intent was to balance entertainment with professionalism, ensuring that televised events wouldn't be dominated by a single player's theatrics at the expense of others' experience. In 2022, after Hellmuth made a public threat to burn down the Rio in a live WSOP stream, widespread backlash again reignited the debate about preferential treatment. Following the incident, the WSOP emphasized its zero-tolerance policy and clarified that such behavior would face escalating penalties, regardless of the player's status. Phil Hellmuth's legacy includes both unrivaled success and the direct shaping of tournament etiquette enforcement due to his infamous table presence. Stu Ungar's legendary poker career and tragic downfall had a lasting impact on how tournaments approach player welfare and substance abuse. Ungar, widely regarded as one of the most naturally gifted card players in history, won the World Series of Poker main event 3 times, twice back-to-back in 1980 and 1981, and again in 1997. Despite his success, he battled severe drug addiction throughout his life. Ungar's rapid decline due to cocaine use and other substance dependencies exposed the vulnerability in professional poker. There were no formal support systems or policies addressing drug use among players. While some casinos and tournament directors had internal rules banning intoxicated players, enforcement was inconsistent and rarely publicized. Following Ungar's death in 1998 at the age of 45 from a heart condition brought on by years of substance abuse, the poker world began to more actively recognize the need for safeguards. Over time, this led to more standardized rules regarding visible intoxication. Players deemed unfit to compete, either due to substance influence or erratic behavior, could now be removed from the tournament floor at the discretion of staff. Additionally, tournament organizers became more sensitive to the mental and physical health demands of multi-day events. Structured breaks, hydration access, and player assistance programs became more common. While these weren't direct memorials to Ungar, they reflected a shift in the industry's attitude after his public struggles.
Mike, what's the secret to your success?
I'm the best player here, that's what.
Really? It's funny, if we took a lie detector test, you would pass the test believing that you are the best player here.
I'll tell you what, when you all see it on TV, you'll all see that I'm the best player here.
Mike Matusow's career prompted changes to tournament decorum and celebration penalties, particularly during televised events. Known as the Mouth, Matusow became famous for his emotional volatility, verbal tirades, and intense post-hand reactions. His dramatic celebrations and frequent outbursts made him a fan favorite on Poker TV, but posed challenges for tournament organizers trying to maintain fairness and flow. One pivotal moment came during the 2004 World Series of Poker, where Matusow's excessive gloating and taunting after winning key pots led to confrontations with other players. His behavior, though entertaining to audiences, disrupted the rhythm of play and created tense environments. He often stood up, shouted, and mocked opponents after hands, which some considered a form of intimidation. In response to these incidents, especially during the poker boom years, tournament rules were updated to include excessive celebration as a penalizable offense. This category included any outburst that delayed the game, involved personal attacks, or created an uncomfortable atmosphere for other players. New rules permitted tournament directors to issue time penalties, chip penalties, or disqualification warnings for repeat offenders. Televised events, particularly those on the World Poker Tour and ESPN's WSOP coverage, also implemented more stringent production guidelines. directors began using delay buffers and editing tools to limit the amount of disruptive behavior shown on air, aiming to balance entertainment with professionalism. Matusow himself received multiple penalties throughout his career under the updated rules, including sit-outs and verbal warnings. While his personality helped define an era of poker, his actions directly contributed to the codification of celebration limits and behavioral standards at live tables. Daniel Negreanu's playing style and table presence led to key clarifications in the rules regarding speech play, which refers to the use of talking, questioning, or verbal manipulation during hands to gain an edge. Known for his conversational approach at the table, Negreanu frequently engaged opponents in dialogue mid-hand, attempting to extract information or induce mistakes through controlled verbal pressure. Negreanu's style included predicting opponents' hole cards out loud, openly discussing possible hand ranges, and inviting players to react. While none of this violated written rules at the time, his consistent use of table talk, especially during televised events, blurred the line between entertainment and potential angle shooting. Angle shooting refers to ethically questionable tactics that exploit loopholes without technically breaking rules. During the mid-2000s, Negreanu's high visibility on shows like High Stakes Poker and the World Series of Poker brought speech play into the spotlight. His influence coincided with a growing number of players mimicking the technique, leading to more incidents where players misuse speech to confuse opponents, misstate actions, or delay decisions. In response, tournament organizers began tightening restrictions on table talk. The World Series of Poker and other major circuits clarified that players could not discuss the contents of their hands in multi-way pots, misrepresent their hand strength, or talk during another player's action. These changes aimed to prevent players from using speech play as a tool to mislead in a way that violated the spirit of the game. While Negreanu never broke rules directly, his prominence and unique verbal tactics forced rulemakers to define boundaries for acceptable speech during hands. His impact can be seen today in nearly every major poker rulebook, where limits on conversation and disclosure are now standardized. Tony G, Bourne and Tanis Guoga became one of the most polarizing figures in poker due to his aggressive table talk, taunting, and psychological tactics. His confrontational style led directly to the enforcement of stricter rules around verbal abuse and unsportsmanlike conduct, particularly in internationally televised events like the Party Poker Premier League and the World Poker Tour. Tony G was known for ridiculing opponents after hands, making sarcastic comments during play, and using personal jabs to tilt or provoke reactions. One of the most infamous examples occurred when he berated Russian player Ralph Perry during the Intercontinental Poker Championship, repeatedly shouting, "You're a disgrace," and "Get on your bike," after knocking him out. While this kind of behavior boosted ratings, it raised concerns over player treatment and the psychological impact of extended verbal aggression at the table. In response to Tony G's antics and growing backlash, tournament organizers began codifying limits on excessive taunting and targeted speech. Rules were introduced to distinguish between general table talk and speech that crossed into harassment, particularly when it involved repeated insults or humiliation of another player. These updates gave floor staff more discretion to issue verbal warnings, impose hand-for-hand penalties, or eject players for repeated violations. Televised poker producers also adjusted filming strategies. Microphones began being muted during certain segments, and delay mechanisms were added to filter out content deemed too hostile. Though Tony G never faced formal disqualification for his behavior, the cumulative effect of his conduct forced the industry to address how much was too much when it came to creating an entertaining villain. Tony G's legacy as a provocateur led directly to modern speech codes in poker. His ability to entertain while antagonizing exposed a loophole in tournament etiquette, one that organizers have since closed through clearer behavioral policies. Justin Bonomo's success in both live and online poker helped accelerate the conversation around staking transparency and collusion prevention, particularly in high roller events. Early in his career, Bonomo was caught multi-accounting in online tournaments, a form of cheating where one player controls multiple entries to gain an advantage. He was banned from multiple sites, including Party Poker and PokerStars, in the mid-2000s after evidence showed he had entered the same tournament under different screen names. While Bonomo later rebuilt his reputation and became one of the most successful live tournament players in history, his early actions contributed to a significant shift in how online and live tournaments address identity verification, staking disclosures, and collusion policies. After several high-profile multi-accounting cases, online poker sites tightened their security protocols. These included stricter IP tracking, hardware fingerprinting, multi-factor authentication, and permanent bans for players found guilty of account sharing. In live poker, particularly among the elite high roller fields, suspicions of soft play, where players stake one another and avoid aggressive actions when facing each other, led to calls for full staking transparency. Tournament series, such as the World Series of Poker and Super High Roller Bowl, began requiring players to disclose if they had a financial interest in others at the table. Though these disclosures are often private and not shared with the public, they allow organizers to monitor for a potential collusion or soft play patterns. Bonomo himself has spoken openly about the complexity of backing and selling action, arguing for clearer boundaries but also transparency in enforcement. His early ban and later redemption arc contributed to ongoing efforts to formalize ethics around ghosting, staking, and real-time assistance, especially as online and live formats continue to overlap. The legacy of Bonomo's controversy lies in how poker has adapted its rules around who is really behind the chips, ensuring every player at the table competes independently and without hidden alliances. Ali Imsirovic was once considered one of the brightest rising stars in poker, especially in high roller circuits. However, in 2022, multiple allegations surfaced accusing him of real-time assistance RTA collusion and multi-accounting in online poker games. These allegations, widely shared by respected pros including Alex Foxon and Chance Cornuth, led to one of the most impactful modern clampdowns on player behavior in both online and live poker. Real-time assistance refers to the use of software or tools that guide a player's decision-making during a hand, often by referencing solver outputs or pre-programmed charts. This form of cheating allows users to play near-perfect strategy without needing to calculate in real time, giving them a huge edge. Several high-stakes regulars claimed Imsirovic was seen regularly using such tools in private games and on certain online platforms. In addition to RTA, Imsirovic was also accused of collusion, coordinating with other players during hands to gain strategic advantage, and multi-accounting, where he allegedly entered the same event under multiple aliases. These tactics are strictly against all terms of service and violate the core competitive integrity of poker. While Imsirovic has never publicly admitted to the accusations or been formally charged by law enforcement, the response from the poker world was swift. GG Poker, one of the largest online poker platforms, banned Imsirovic along with over 50 other players suspected of cheating or using RTAs. He was also barred from Poker Go Tour events, with organizers stating they would no longer allow him to participate until further notice. The case triggered a wave of reform across online poker platforms. Sites ramped up detection systems for solver-based play, introduced deeper analysis of hand histories, and increased use of AI to flag patterns consistent with RTA. The controversy also spurred discussions around creating a poker blacklist or a formal regulatory body, something the industry currently lacks. Ali Imsirovic's fall from grace solidified the need for transparency, detection, and consequences in high-stakes poker, especially in an era where technology can easily distort fairness if left unchecked. Phil Ivey's edge sorting scandal led directly to widespread changes in casino security procedures, card design, and table game policies across multiple jurisdictions. The controversy centers around two high-profile cases, one at the Borgata Casino in Atlantic City and the other at Crockford's in London. In both instances, Ivey and his partner, Chung Yin, Kelly's son, used a technique known as edge sorting to win millions of dollars playing baccarat. Edge sorting exploits tiny manufacturing imperfections on the backs of playing cards. If the design pattern is asymmetrical, it may allow a sharp observer to distinguish one edge of a card from the other. By persuading the dealer to rotate high-value cards during the shuffle, under the guise of superstition or preference, Ivey and Son were able to identify those cards from the back during subsequent hands. In 2012, Ivey won over $9 million at Crockford's. The casino refused to pay out, citing cheating. Ivey admitted to using edge sorting, but argued it was a legal advantage play, not fraud. The case went to the UK High Court, which ultimately ruled in favour of Crockford's in 2016, stating that while Ivey did not consider himself to be cheating, his actions violated the game's premise and fairness. In a separate case, the Borgata Casino sued Ivey for similar edge sorting tactics, where he won over $10 million across multiple sessions. After lengthy litigation, the court ordered Ivey to repay the full amount plus interest. Enforcement included asset seizures from Ivey's tournament winnings in the United States. Following these incidents, casinos worldwide adopted stricter measures. Many stopped using playing cards with distinguishable backs altogether, opting for fully symmetrical designs. Shuffling procedures were updated to include automatic or machine shuffling, and dealers were instructed not to accommodate player requests involving card rotation or similar handling changes. Ivey's case set a new legal and ethical precedent in casino gaming. It drew a line between advantage play and illicit manipulation, prompting gaming commissions and casino operators to reevaluate how closely physical game components should be monitored and controlled. Chris Ferguson, once a respected World Series of Poker main event champion and one of the faces of Full Tilt Poker, became a central figure in the aftermath of Black Friday, the United States government's crackdown on online poker on April 15, 2011. His involvement led to sweeping changes in licensing, fund segregation, and operator transparency across the entire industry. Ferguson was a founding member and part owner of Full Tilt Poker. Following Black Friday, the US Department of Justice alleged that Full Tilt had mismanaged player funds and operated as a Ponzi scheme, using deposits from new players to pay out withdrawals while owners received distributions. It was revealed that Full Tilt did not maintain full liquidity for customer balances, and Ferguson, among others, was named in a civil complaint for his role in the company's financial operations. Full Tilt was accused of falsely representing that player funds were safe and segregated. In reality, the company had a significant shortfall, estimated at over $300 million, while executives had reportedly withdrawn more than $440 million in distributions. Although Ferguson settled the charges without admitting wrongdoing, he agreed to forfeit funds and was banned from participating in regulated US poker operations for a time. The fallout from the scandal triggered immediate regulatory reform. Online poker sites operating in newly legalized markets, such as New Jersey and Nevada, were now required to segregate player funds from operational accounts, submit to regular audits, and adhere to licensing conditions that included criminal background checks on owners and key staff. Sites like PokerStars, which also faced Black Friday charges but took swift action to repay players, emerged with a stronger reputation. Ferguson's return to the World Series of Poker in 2016 was met with widespread backlash. Many players and fans viewed his reappearance as tone-deaf, given his role in a scandal that left thousands of players without access to their funds for years. The Full Tilt case and Ferguson's central involvement reshaped how online poker sites are regulated and perceived. It established non-negotiable standards for financial transparency and player protection, closing the loopholes that had allowed platforms to operate unchecked for years. Annie Duke's involvement in the Epic Poker League scandal led to increased scrutiny around poker leadership roles, sponsorship trust, and player vetting procedures. While not a cheating incident in the traditional sense, the fallout from her co-founding and mismanagement of the Epic Poker League deeply damaged the professional image of poker and prompted changes in how future leagues and events are structured. The Epic Poker League launched in 2011 with the goal of creating an exclusive, invitation-only poker tour for elite players. Annie Duke was appointed as commissioner, while Jeffrey Pollock, former WSOP commissioner, handled the business side. The league implemented strict eligibility criteria, including code of conduct clauses that required a clean legal and behavioral record to participate. However, only 3 events were held before the parent company, Federated Sports Plus Gaming, filed for bankruptcy. Despite securing millions in funding and promising generous tournament overlays and a $1 million free roll for Player of the Year, the organization failed to generate sustainable revenue. It was later revealed that key management figures received large salaries and bonuses even as debts mounted and player prizes were left unpaid. The hypocrisy of promoting integrity and responsibility while engaging in poor financial practices drew significant backlash. Annie Duke became a focal point of criticism due to her leadership role, public persona, and lack of transparency during the league's collapse. Many accused her of leveraging her reputation while taking no accountability for the financial mismanagement. The result was a chilling effect across the poker industry. Sponsorship deals became more cautious, with companies demanding detailed financial disclosures and clearer contracts before committing resources. New leagues or invitational events began enforcing tighter governance standards, ensuring that decision makers were subject to background checks and conflict of interest evaluations. Additionally, the Epic Poker League's failed conduct policy exposed the inconsistency in how poker polices player behavior. Several players who met the skill requirements were banned due to prior misdemeanors, yet some executives overseeing the league had little accountability themselves. This inconsistency prompted future tours and operators to re-evaluate how and when conduct policies should be enforced, and by whom. Annie Duke's failed experiment became a case study in mismanaged poker leadership, and her involvement directly contributed to long-term distrust in player-run or self-governed poker ventures. Chris Moneymaker's historic win at the 2003 World Series of Poker main event did not lead to disciplinary rules being written against him, but it did lead to tournament rule changes designed to handle massive player fields, inexperienced entrants, and satellite qualifiers, all of which surged in direct response to his victory. Moneymaker, an amateur accountant who qualified online via a $39 satellite on the PokerStars, defeated over 800 players to win $2.5 million and spark what is now known as the Moneymaker effect. His victory demonstrated that anyone with an internet connection could compete with the pros, forever altering the trajectory of modern poker. As a result, the following year's World Series of Poker saw its main event field nearly triple to over 2,000 players. By 2006, that number had ballooned to over 8,000. Tournament organizers were unprepared for this scale and had to rapidly adjust structures, staffing, and facilities to handle the influx. These changes included multi-day starting flights, overflow venues, and standardized blind level lengths to ensure consistent pacing despite the larger fields. Additionally, procedures for payout distribution, seat assignments, and registration deadlines were tightened to accommodate both recreational players and professionals on a fair basis. Moneymaker's story also ushered in a new era of online qualifiers, which introduced many players with limited live experience to major tournaments. In response, rules were updated to clarify etiquette, chip visibility, and betting procedures, aiming to reduce unintentional errors from newcomers unfamiliar with live play. While Moneymaker did not break the game, he expanded it. His impact was so significant that it reshaped the operational and logistical blueprint of nearly every major tournament thereafter. Without needing to break a rule, his presence alone forced organizers to rewrite the rule book. Bryn Kenney, once the all-time live poker earnings leader, became the focus of major controversy in 2022 when multiple allegations emerged accusing him of running a backing operation that promoted collusion, ghosting, and unethical player manipulation. While not officially banned or charged by any governing body, the accusations pushed the poker world to examine how stables operate and sparked calls for new rules around multi-accounting, ghosting, and staking transparency. The allegations came from Martin Zamani, a former backed player, who claimed Kenney instructed his stable to collude in online tournaments, register late under strategic conditions, and even use real-time solvers or share accounts to improve win rates. Zamani also alleged that Kenney exercised extreme personal control over the players he backed, including requiring certain health routines and spiritual consultations. One of the most serious claims was ghosting, where a stronger player either advises or takes over decision-making during an online session, often without the opponent knowing. Zamani alleged that Kenney himself, or others in his circle, ghosted weaker players' accounts during key stages of high-stakes online tournaments. Though Kenney denied many of the accusations, he did admit in interviews that he had backed hundreds of players and made arrangements that could be seen as grey area. He also did not deny that some accounts under his stable may have participated in unethical conduct, though he distanced himself from direct involvement. In the aftermath, major poker platforms like GG Poker and PokerStars were pressed to clarify their policies on stable management, account sharing, and outside assistance. Several sites reiterated that ghosting and multi-accounting were bannable offenses and increased their internal investigations into suspicious play among high-stakes accounts. More importantly, the community began demanding a framework of accountability for backers, especially those managing large pools of players. This includes documenting who is playing on which account, requiring disclosures for staked relationships in tournaments, and setting guidelines to prevent stables from colluding or soft playing. The Bryn Kenney scandal did not result in a formal suspension, but it forced poker into deeper self-reflection on how far informal power structures could go before corrupting the competitive integrity of the game.